What's up, YouTube? Stocks by the numbers. Welcome back. My sincerest apologies because I know a bunch of people did ask for an update on Take-Two, TTWO, just to see how I personally felt about it going into these earnings. And I apologize again. Unfortunately, it slipped my mind, and the company ended up reporting earnings today after market close. But let's do a quick update here. So it looks like, as you see, it's down at 142 right now after hours, closed at about 146. So we're only down about 4 points, 2.8%. And I know they posted a little bit of a wider loss here, and they happen to beat on revenue here, 1.349 billion on estimates of 1.309 billion. So nice little beat there by about 3%. Pulled back basically to this trend line here that we had drawn out last time of about 142, low 142s there, and bouncing around. Worst case, in my opinion, I mean, we weren't really even in like any type of specific pattern here that I'm seeing, in my opinion. Almost looked like we were just kind of like trumpeting. But, I mean, I guess we can come up like that. And just come across like that. And that's what I mean. Even if we play the bodies of those candles, it looks more like a trumpet as opposed to an actual like even parallel consolidated zone. And unfortunately, the company basically said that we're going to see some potential little delays here. So loss widens, obviously, revenue falls, as you see. Fiscal Q4 loss late Thursday of 1702 per diluted share, wider than the loss of 362 a year earlier. Revenue for the quarter ended was 1.4 billion, down from 1.45 billion a year earlier. The company said it expects Q1 loss of $1.58 to $1.43 per share on revenue of 1.3 to 1.35 billion. Expects fiscal year 2025 loss of 390 to 350 per share on revenue of 5.57 billion to 5.67 billion. Shares down almost 3%. GTA 6, which of course is what everyone is waiting for, they're expecting, and they should be expecting a pretty big bump to come into TTWO as we draw closer to that actual release date, and then of course when we potentially start to see some pre-sale numbers and whatnot. So GTA, of course, is the flagship title for Take-Two Interactive. Said GTA will launch in the fall of 2025 as it lowered its outlook for the fiscal year ahead. Video game company expects net bookings for the fiscal year ending in March 25 of 5.55 billion to 5.65 billion, down from the slightly less than $8 billion it projected in February. So obviously, big difference there from the original projections, but we knew that already, kind of. Take-Two said the change reflects the newly disclosed launch timing for GTA 6, since it is now due to land in fiscal 2026. Analysts were expecting less of a haircut, with projected net bookings for fiscal 25 of 6.98 billion. So we're just too far apart here. So that's why, in my opinion, I think Take-Two may possibly remain under pressure, and we may see that next level down of that other trend line that we drew out last time. I believe was maybe around 135. I think, in my opinion, could be potentially the next stop for Take-Two, but we'll see if it holds like that 142 trend line level. Take-Two said fiscal fourth quarter revenue declined 3% to 1.4 billion, so loss widened to 2.9 billion or 1702 a share from 610 million or 362 a year ago. The company said the wider loss is partly due to an impairment charge of 2.3 billion and a reorganization charge of 104.6 million related to its cost reduction programs. Cutting 5% of the workforce to boost profit margins, we know this. Match Factory, highlight of the quarter, right. Mobile games doing pretty well. Money well spent, said in an interview. Bookings decrease, net bookings of 1.2 to 1.25 billion. Analysts were expecting 1.25 billion. Okay, so now we're kind of towards the lower end. Okay, let's see. Anything else? Largest contributors to net bookings were NBA 2K24, GTA Online, GTA 5, Toon Blast, Empires and Puzzles. We got the Red Dead, we got WWE. Quote, we concluded fiscal 24 with strong fourth quarter results, including net bookings of 135 billion, which exceeded the high end of our guidance range. Many of our key franchises outperformed, including NBA 2K24. Uh, yeah, yeah. A narrowing of Rockstar's previously established window to fall of calendar 2025 for GTA 6. Quote, we are highly confident that Rockstar Games will deliver an unparalleled entertainment experience, and our expectations for the commercial impact of the title continue to increase. Looking ahead, we believe that our company is poised to achieve new levels of success, and we expect to deliver sequential growth in net bookings for fiscal 25, 26, and 27. So obviously, they're going to remain optimistic, of course, but yeah, even though the losses widened a little bit, we did technically come in above revenue estimates, which again is probably why, 2-3% drop. Not the biggest disappointment, I guess we can say. But again, as you see here, maybe in my opinion, back towards the bottom of this range here, maybe about 135, 135 and a half. In my opinion, that could potentially be the next stop. We have to see if it holds this 142. But again, now we're coming off kind of like two kind of mixed, slightly disappointing quarters. This quarter, obviously, last quarter was a miss on the top and bottom line. This quarter here, at least we beat on revenue. But of course, guidance comes in light. Market cap about 25 billion. And we just brought in what, like 1.3? So yeah, we're bringing in like 5, it looks like. They're looking for about 5.5. So we're trading like 5 times yearly revenue right now. But now we're losing money per share. You understand? So that's why, in my opinion, like if they wanted to, they can easily sell this off and they could drop this back down to like 4.5 or even 4 times, which would be about a $20 billion market cap, which could, I mean, it could be a chunk. We could see a chunk here, possibly back down to this bottom trend line, believe it or not. Potentially form that longer term double bottom, maybe, at around this 130 mark. And technically we did gap up here. That looks like what, like 128? I mean, it is possible. It is possible. Again, I'm not bashing a lot of these companies that a lot of you guys may like. And over the long term, chances are Take-Two is probably going to remain okay. As long as there's not too much belt tightening by the consumer, everyone's probably going to keep buying a lot of these video game titles. And of course, when the flagship GTA 6 comes out, I'm sure a bunch of people are going to jump on that. And that's obviously going to generate a couple of billion of revenue for TTWO. So again, over the longer term, I'm sure it could probably easily get back up to 170, 180, 200 plus even over the next I'd say year or two, obviously, given some time with the GTA. But in my opinion, again, I just want to remind you guys that I know we continued higher today, supposedly hitting highs. The Dow touched above 40,000 at one point. So these markets are up and up. And, I really don't like to go down the political conversation road, but, a lot of people are upset with Biden and the economy overall, yet we just continue to keep climbing. And I understand that there's, some light at the end of the tunnel and there's potential rate cuts coming. I understand all that. But again, we did go on a massive run starting basically as soon as November hit the calendar. And it was on cooling inflation and rate cuts. And the rate cuts have not yet happened. And I know CPI came out. Everyone was pumped about that recently. But like I said, in my eyes, we just seem kind of unchanged, really, over the last like 6-7 months. So if a stock like Take-Two right now, my point is, if a stock like Take-Two right now kind of holds this 142 level and doesn't really break to like this next support line or this longer term support trend line, in my opinion, the market has to stay up for it to perform like that, right? So if we start chunking down now, and we start giving up like a couple of 100 points on the Dow, obviously I'm speaking just in generalities here, talking about the Dow. I know the company's on the NASDAQ, but I'm sure you can appreciate what I'm saying. If we start pulling back, 7/10, 8/10 of a percent, 1% day in, day out, all of a sudden we get into sell-off mode. Something like Take Two, again, technically, kind of back-to-back, kind of mixed disappointing quarters. It's probably not going to be able to hold this level, and then we're going to see again like the mid 130s, and then you're going to potentially see the low 130s or even sub 130 coming back to this trend line here. But again, if we pull that back, just so, right, that's this bottom trend line. That's going from the low of July 30th. This is weekly time frame. So the week of July 30th, 2012, coming all the way up to that bottom it hit November 7th, the week of November 7th, 22, coming across the absolute bottom of the bottom. So that's why, again, if we're not going to completely beat the crap out of the company, right, because they're still doing decent business and they have other titles that are doing well, and over the next couple of quarters they're expecting to turn everything around and increasing profit margins, cutting 5% of the workforce, and we have GTA 6 on the horizon coming out. That's why, again, I'm not saying necessarily that we should bring this down to like $110 a share and bring it down to new lows and whatnot. But as you see, if we do pull back and get near this bottom trend line, we're going to be looking at potentially about 130.5, maybe 131. And you can see that is very close to our 52-week lows of 130.34. So again, not necessarily that we should destroy the stock, but markets have been staying up. So stocks that are technically underperforming in these earnings aren't seeing the types of sell-offs that in my eyes they should be seeing. So again, if we do start to sell off overall in the markets and we do start to have a nice little pullback or a nice little correction, something like TTWO could definitely drop about 10% from this level in my eyes. But as you see right now, only down about 2.8%. So again, it was technically a revenue beat. So it's not completely negative, but we can see the stock actually went right up to that 200-day moving average here, 148.86. The stock got up to 148.97 and then had a rejection, pulled back below the 50-day moving average as well, I believe, and 50-day 146.35. So we pulled back. Now we're at 142. So we're right here. So we can potentially come down and touch that bottom Bollinger Band, which is just shy of 140. But now on this drop, again, we're going to have the curl downward on the MACD. So people are going to be watching the MACD. And if that crosses to the downside, that's what I mean. That could further accelerate the sell-off. And that's why I'm saying, in my opinion, maybe that 135 level or potentially the low 130s could be incoming. Could be incoming. But again, that's just my opinion. RSI was middle of the road here. Same thing on the weekly, middle of the road. Now we pull back and we can see we were, what was this level? 135.64 about, and we can see 136.37 on the weekly bottom Bollinger Band. So see how now like the tops and the bottoms were kind of now like curling downward into this direction. So this is why we can potentially come down and test that bottom Bollinger Band, which over the next, week or so could be, could end up being about 135.5. So we'll see. The MACD was kind of starting to flatten out and potentially start to curl here. You can see we had a little bit of a rise, a little bit of a bounce back over the last couple of weeks, but now it's obviously going to curl back downward and potentially start to pull back even more. But everyone wants the perfect price, but I probably will say, in my opinion, even if we can pull back to the low 130s, chances are, that there are younger people out there who keep an eye on stocks like this, the EAs, the TTWOs. They're up on the gaming, and again, they see that inside of the next year or so, we're going to get that GTA 6 title coming out. So there are probably people right now after hours who are stepping in and grabbing a couple of shares, even on this dip, right? They're potentially just buying every dip whenever they can, building a position and hoping for that long-term growth. And again, in my opinion, it'll probably be fine. But here in the short term, we can continue potentially down into sell-off mode here. Let's draw out this trend line out of curiosity. What was the high? 171.59. 59, and we come back. We can see we actually technically got above this resistance trend line here coming from these tops back here, February 8th, 24. That was connected just now to the top of April 9th, 2024. And we can see this was just in the last day or two. Yep, we can see this was Wednesday. Yep, late afternoon. Boom, had the big pop. And then, of course, we immediately pulled back and rejected back below. Tried to retest it again. Rejected. Came up. Rejected. And ended up pulling back going into the close. And now, of course, we have the slight miss there on the earnings. So now we're down here. Now we're down here. And what was the high here? 148.72, 148.97. So it technically wasn't a double top, but... And again, we could potentially maybe stop right here. Or we can see also we have this fib here of 136.94. And I know, yeah, we got the bottom Bollinger Band on the weekly there, 136.37. So that's why a potential pullback to the about the mid 130s could be possible here, in my opinion. Let's check the pivot points real quick. Yep, we're below that right now. 120 seems like an overreaction, in my opinion. Yep, next support level here, we're sitting, we were sitting right here at about 146 even, basically where the stock closed, and we can see next support level here on the daily of about 135 3/4. So 135.74 support level on the daily. We have 136.94, and of course this fib as well, 140.06 that we have to keep an eye on. But yeah, 135.64, 135.74, pretty darn close. So yeah, that may be showing us where the next stop may be. But yeah, TTWO with a little bit of a mixed report, and of course having slightly lower forecast here than analysts were expecting. We're looking for close to 8 billion. The company's talking about 5.6 billion. So it's going to be a little bit of a rocky year for TTWO, which is basically what we said 3 months ago when we saw those earnings, and we were looking forward when they were talking about kind of like the mixed sales and numbers that were coming in off of the other titles, like the Red Dead's, GTA 5 online that's established already, and the NBA 2K. I know we said, well, I know some other people say, I don't have the new NBA 2K, but I know other people say like, it's not as good as it used to be, you know, back in like the 20 teens, right? Like 2014, like 16, 17, like everyone, a lot of people still say that those were the better NBA games. So we know that we have some hot spots and some cold spots when we look at all the titles that TTWO has under its umbrella. But hey, you know, if you tell me you're not worried at all, even if it drops down to 133, you know, you're buying all these dips and you're just waiting for 12, 18 months from now, I would understand that, you know. And in my opinion, I probably can't really fault you too much if that's your strategy. But we'll end it there. So once again, Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually very quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that these markets are rocky, they're volatile, they're very uncertain. Some people may have stepped in with a brand name like TTWO, rolled the dice with some calls. Boom, they happen to come out, wider than expected loss, down 3%. There you go. So we understand that earnings are a gamble. So if you are playing any of these earnings plays, please understand the risks involved. But moving forward, of course, I wish everyone the best. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. Have a good day.